Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables and welcome to my Christmas setup, my favorite setup all year long. Like, lighting is just amazing. So today I'm here to share with you all of the books I read in the month of November. I read 7 books in the month of November, which is pretty good for me. Overall, I liked all the books I read except for a couple weren't my favorite, but overall it was a solid reading month. So I'm not that mad about it. I feel like I'm kind of going in a downward spiral when it comes to the quantity of books I'm reading, but the quality is there, so I'm not that mad about it. As always with these wrap-up videos, I'm going to start with the book I like the least, working up to my favorite book that I read that month. Let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is one that was definitely a cover by. The plot sounded interesting. I didn't know that it was going to be what it was, I guess you can say, and that is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maher. So apparently this was kind of a TikTok series, not the book, but she kind of made a assistant to the villain she would act like she was a assistant to the villain, and it got really popular on TikTok. I didn't know. I'm not really on TikTok, honestly. I know. But apparently, it got popular, and so she decided to write a book, and I did not enjoy this. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Sad to say, I'm not trying to bash or anything. I didn't love it. I think the idea of it was interesting, but the execution just wasn't there for me. So this book follows a character named Evie. It's kind of set, I would say, like kind of medieval King Arthur times. Evie lives in this village. She just got let go from her job. Her dad's sick. She has a younger sister. She's the only provider for her house. And so she goes in the woods one day when you're not supposed to because the villain lives out there, and who should she run into but the villain? They get into a tussle, and then she just becomes his assistant, and it picks up 6 months later. She's kind of in the thralls of being his assistant. He lives like in this abandoned castle, and he's got like a full set of staff, and nobody knows his name. They just either call him sir or the assistant, and I'm just like, ugh. And it's just, there's really no plot to it 100%, like somebody's trying to sabotage him. Other than that, like, you can clearly tell that they like each other, but nothing comes to fruition in this book. I know it's going to be a series, so I know romance is going to happen more in the second book, which begs me to question why it's being like in the Goodreads Awards for Best Romantasy. I think that's what it's called, romantic fantasy. There's no romance in this first book at all, like none. Why is it nominated for that? I don't know. But the writing just wasn't it for me. The plot wasn't super interesting. I didn't enjoy the characters. It was just kind of meh. I don't like to bash books or anything. I don't know. I just didn't really love it. So moving on. Next up, I have one that is a memoir. I always feel very weird about reading memoirs because of somebody's personal life, but I read Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. So if you don't know who Jill Duggar is, she was on the very popular show 18 Kids and Counting, 19 Kids, one of those. I did watch it when I was younger, so I was interested in reading her book because if you don't know the Duggars, they are very religious. I don't know if they're Mormon or if there's different branches of that. They're fundamentalists, maybe, Mormons, but either way, they had a very strict way of being a family with religion tying into it. I was interested in it when I was younger because I thought, oh, they just seem like this picture perfect family. Everybody helps out, everybody chips in, everybody's good. But of course, as time goes on, the facade begins to crumble and you learn kind of some of the scarier truths about that family, particularly about the brother. So I was interested in reading her story and I enjoyed it. It was interesting reading her perspective. It wasn't the best well-written book, but then again, it's hard for me to say because it's judging someone's strictly personal story. So I really don't have a rating for this one. I think I maybe give it a 3 on Goodreads because, I don't think you have to rate, so I don't know why I rated it, but it was good. Like, I would say maybe check it out if you're into memoirs. I don't know. I was able to get it from my library. I think I was on hold for it for like forever, and it finally came, and I was like, oh, I should probably read it, and that's why I read it, and I don't know. Anyway, moving on, we have a novella, the first Christmassy read for me this year, and that is A Festive Feud by Maren Moore. But this is a cute novella. It's over, I think it's like right under 200 pages. It's a short and steamy one, hence capitalized steamy part. This follows 2 different characters. We follow Jackson and we follow Emma, and they live in this very small town, and their families are kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. Their families hate each other. Each year each of their families throw this huge Christmas party. They don't invite each other, blah, blah, blah. At the beginning of the book, Jackson and Emma have a confrontation and the town's getting sick of it. So they're like, you know what? No, you could throw one Christmas party, but you have to throw it together. And they are very clearly attracted to each other and nip that right in the bud at the beginning. And it kind of goes on from there. It was cute. It was steamy. It was what you're looking for in a holiday Christmas novella. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was interesting. I definitely want to check out more of this author. I've never read anything by her, but I liked it. Moving in to another romance I enjoyed, Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. This was an indie book, and a lot of indie authors are getting picked up by publishers, which I think is awesome. St. Martin picked this one up, and I love this one. So this is about a character named Farley, who is a comedian. She's very brash, she's outspoken. At the beginning of this book, she has a manager named Meyer, and basically Farley's on the cusp of like becoming a really big comedian, and she's about to go on tour with these other 2 female comedians. They're like, you know what could really boost you is like kind of having a publicity relationship, which I think a lot of Hollywood does. I don't know which ones in particular, but you know, they decide her and Meyer should do the publicity stunt. He's her manager, but he also used to be a very big comedian. So, you know, they decide to fake date, and you can guess what goes on from there. They both have feelings for each other that has been kind of, you know, bubbling under the surface for years and years and years, and now it's finally come out to play. Meyer is a single dad. He has a daughter who is deaf, and it was just so funny, so wholesome. The romantic relationship was just amazing. I really enjoyed it, and we'll definitely be reading more from Tara DeWitt. I know she wrote The Co-op, and I can't think of another one, but I really like this one. If you want a fun, cute, romantic, steamy romance book, I would highly recommend checking this one out. 4 out of 5. Speaking of romance books, I have Mixed Signals by B.K. Borson. This is the 3rd book in her Love Light Farm series. I did skip the 2nd one. I will read it. I just felt very drawn to read this one, probably because it's set in a bakery. This one follows 2 characters, Layla and Caleb. Layla is the baker at Love Light Farms. So if you don't know, her first book, Love Light Farms, is a holiday romance, which I love. It's one of my favorites. It's a place called Love Light Farms, which is like kind of a Christmassy place. Layla has like a bakehouse that's there, and tired of seeing all of her friends in love. Like, they've all found love, but she has not, and she's getting kind of tired of that. So then she runs into like the town's golden boy, like the do-gooder, if you will, Caleb, and he's always had eyes for Layla, but has never really said anything. And, you know, she tells him her woes about dating and not finding the one. And he's like, you know what? Let's just not fake date, but let's just, you know, let's date for a month. I'm going to show you how it's really meant to be treated. Like, because she's always been on dates with horrible men, and, you know, she can give him some pointers because he hasn't found the one. You know, it's just it makes no sense, but it's so cute. It's a small town romance that does have some steam in it. I do not remember Love Light Farms having any, but this one definitely does. But I really enjoyed it. It was such a cute relationship. I love visiting Love Light Farms. It's very Gilmore Girls-esque, how the town knows everybody. They even have like a family, they even have like a phone tree, but it's like mainly gossip tree, and it just made me think of like Babette and Patty so much from Stars Hollow, but it was super cute. I would highly recommend it. Like I said, I'm reading them out of order. I will read the 2nd one. I believe that one's called In the Weeds. I do plan to read it, but this one was really cute, and I would recommend it. And we have Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel to his book Legends and Lattes, which I read earlier this year. So in Legends and Lattes, we have a character named Viv who's an orc, and she opens up her own coffee shop. This is way before that. This is when she first starts becoming a mercenary, and while they're out like on the hunt for a necromancer, she gets really injured, and so she has to kind of recover in this small seaside town, and she's very unhappy about it. She's like, I want to get out there to get to killing and axing and all that kind of stuff, but she has to take time to recover, and she starts to learn more about this sleepy seaside town, and she finds this bookstore, and it's kind of in need of some help, and so she decides to help it. And there, the bookstore owner is like a ratkin, Fern, I believe her name is, and she kind of gets Viv to love books, and I love that aspect of this book so much. Like, Viv was not a reader, so Fern was like, let me really try to find a book that you might like, and so she did. And then she would give her a different genre, and she would just get so happy about it, and I'm just like, this is me, this is every reader. But it was just cute. If you liked Legends and Lattes, you'll like this one. These books don't have a very strong plot, I'll tell you that. Like, can I tell you what the plot really is about? There's not really that one. But what makes up for it is I think the writing's really good. I love the characters, and the side characters are phenomenal, and just the setting, it's just a warm, cozy. If you're looking for a book that'll fit that vibe, vibe, look no further than this series because it just gives you all that warm and cozy feeling that you would really enjoy. Like I said, the plot's really not there, but it makes up for it in heart and stuff like that. So I gave it a 4 out of 5. I loved it. I did like Legends and Lattes a little bit more, but I will say I think I might like the side characters in this one a little bit more. They were just so fun and just quirky, and it was just cute. Then the last book I just read on a whim. I've been meaning to read it for a long time, and I just haven't. And I was like, you know what? Now's the time. I'm just gonna do it. And it surprised me. And that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So I read her romance book last year called The Dead Romantics. Loved it. And I knew I was gonna love this one, but I didn't know how much I was gonna love it. I loved this book. Like, it kind of came in at the very end of the year for me, and like is going to be a contender for one of my favorite books of the year. I wouldn't have guessed it, but here we are. Who doesn't love a good end of the year surprise when it comes to reading, if you will? So this book is very different to explain. So we have a character named Clementine, and at the beginning of the book, she just lost her aunt, and her aunt and her have been very, very close. They've always had a very good kinship, and her aunt leaves Clementine her apartment, and so she moves in, and things are a little different. Her aunt's always told her that her apartment has some quirks, you know, the faucet's leaky, you know, the AC might not work, there's pigeons that might come in, blah, blah, blah. Also, you know, her apartment kind of has some time travel elements into it, and it makes no absolute sense. So she walks in the door, and it's 7 years ago, and there's a guy in her apartment that she's never seen before. His name is Ewan, one of those, and basically he's like, you know, oh, I just talked to your aunt. She is off traveling because, like I said, it's 7 years ago, so her aunt is still alive, and she said I could sublet this apartment, and Clementine's like, what the crap? And the basically is you can't control when the apartment's going to send you back in 7 years' time. And it's always 7 years. It's just, that's just what it is. 7's a lucky number. I don't know. But basically sometimes she'll go home in the apartment and it's just the apartment she, you know, lives in, you know, that her aunt left her. Sometimes she'll go in the apartment and it's her aunt's apartment from 7 years in the past, and Ewan will be there. And they strike up a friendship. He calls her Lemon, which I adore so much because if you don't know, 30 Rock's one of my favorite shows. It's a very underrated show that I love and adore. The main character in that series is called Liz Lemon. Another character in that series is called Jack Donaghy. He always calls her Lemon.
Lemon, is this about a boy?
And he's always like, God, Lemon. Like, it's just, I don't know why. I just loved reading that. But basically they form a friendship that goes into something more. She maybe tries to find him in her time, you know, 7 years, you know, have passed. And it's tough to explain. It's time travel, but kind of not, but it's also about maybe like finding love at the right place, but not at the right time. You know what I'm saying? It was just so beautiful. It talked about grief. It talked about trying to find your path in life. It talked about love. I love the relationship between Lemon and Ewan. It was just so beautiful and organic. I gave it 5 out of 5. Loved it. Definitely my favorite over The Dead Romantics, I'll say. But I loved this book. Would highly recommend if you just want a swoon-worthy romance. This one's for you. So there you have all the 7 books I read in the month of November. Overall, pretty good. Can't complain too much. Hopefully December will treat me well with lots of good holiday romances. I would love to know if you've read any of these in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.